Hear that? That's the sound of speechless. Like when you give her an unforgettable gift from Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. Whether it's one of the hundreds of new pieces in our collection, one of the exclusive pieces you can only find at Jared, or a custom piece we create just for you, Jared is the place to find the gift.
I love it.
That takes her breath away. And that's why he went to Jared.
Looking to up your bourbon game? Larceny Wheated Bourbon is the key. It's an award-winning small batch bourbon made with more wheat for a smoother taste. Get caught in the act. Larceny Wheated Bourbon, Bardstown, Kentucky. 46% alcohol by volume. Think wisely, drink wisely.
Our new presenting sponsor is ZipRecruiter. Are you looking for a smarter way to hire great candidates?
Obviously. With
ZipRecruiter, 80% of employers who post a job get a quality candidate to the site in just one day. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010.
Where I am at my life, in terms of where I have hair and where I don't have hair, I just have to tell you that I am excited the fact that I don't have a unibrow.
You're in the 06010. Never gonna hustle in case you didn't know. Matthew Berry, TMR.
You guys go ahead, give me grief for being on SportsCenter for 45 seconds. I think you could do better than me because I don't think you could.
Jailbait, Field Yates.
You're terrible at hashtag improv. At Field Yates. At Field Yates.
Stephania Bell.
Oh, don't let Barry convert you.
Secret Squirrel, Daniel Dodd.
Make it happen.
Mediocre fantasy advice.
You're older than people realize.
That never stops.
Loyal 06010 listener.
The playoffs continue. Welcome in.
Playoffs?
Playoffs?
Never gets old.
Week 15
Yes, sir.
begins tonight. It is the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. My name is Field Yates. Matthew Berry is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Looking very summery today. I like that. It's
snowing
snowing outside.
Well, just because it's snowing, that's exactly right. I'm very field-esque.
I was going to say, I'm rubbing off on you.
You really are.
Yeah.
What color would you describe my jacket?
It sort of has like it's a heathered blue, sort of a sea breeze heathered blue. Stephania, how did I do on that?
Good. I was going to go with periwinkle blue.
Yeah, periwinkle also works. Yeah.
What, Secret Squirrel?
I said periwinkle in here. I swear I said periwinkle.
If no one heard you, does it count?
Doesn't count.
Great minds think
Keith
alike.
heard me.
What?
Keith
is shaking his head.
Damn, that is not fair.
I don't listen to Daniel.
Oh, you are
Smart.
such a jerk.
Smart.
Great minds think alike, and a nice gingham shirt. Gingham shirt, I would say. So
Yeah,
looking
exactly.
very
trying to bring. Thank you.
Gingham.
Trying to
Isn't
bring a
that
little.
what you say about your Aggies? Gingham?
It's Gingham, Stephania. Are you excited for the Star Wars? It's Happy Star Wars Week to you.
Happy Star Wars Week to you as well. You know what's funny is, so in my family, I'm one of three, as many know on this podcast. My brother is like, Taylor Yates was put on this earth to enjoy Star Wars. He's obsessed. So like maybe a month and a half ago, and my brother, an incredible guy and brainiac, all that stuff. Him and his wife are like the ultimate planners. And like rather than being like
More than you?
like they put me to shame.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
I had that same reaction.
Trust me. And congrats to them. They're now they moved into their new home this weekend, so they're all like they're figuring a lot of stuff out. And my brother sends us a note like a month and a half ago, like, hey, sends a family note. And it's like, hi, I'm like emailing to gauge interest on potentially seeing Star Wars as a family when it comes out. And like, please fill out the following questionnaire. And it's like 3 or 4 questions. It's like, 1, do you have interest in seeing Star Wars? Yes. It's like 2.
It's a logic tree. Yeah, what are those called? It's like what are those called? You know, like it's a logic tree or something like that. What's the, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
2, if you don't have interest in seeing Star Wars, would you be willing to babysit Asher, who's my brother's son, my nephew? So I'm like, maybe I should just say no to 1 so I can hang out with my nephew, who's the man, right? Like,
right, of course. Yeah.
It's like, 3, it's like, which of the following days work? And then after we figured it out, it was like, we get an
what character would you like to dress as?
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So,
Did you got an Evite?
Yes. Please know Finn and BB-8 are not available.
Right. Yeah. BB-8's been taken care of. Chewbacca.
Would you like to buy the popcorn or the drinks?
Right. So
who would like to park the car while the other goes to wait in line for the refreshments?
It's all Google Calendar.
Of course
it is.
Because my sister-in-law works for Google, so it's all it's all part of the plan. Again, they're the brainiacs, right? Like they're they're the.
What did you check?
What did you check? Don't leave us hanging.
What's going on with you and Chapin?
Of course, we said yes. As it turned out, this weekend specifically, like we have it's holiday party season.
Sure, of
as
course.
you guys know that. So like.
I'm
Friday
told
night,
that. I don't get invited very often, but
Fields on the circuit.
Yeah, of course.
So
I'm
very
not.
busy schedule.
Friday night, so
But I see a lot
night,
of Instagram posts of people at holiday parties. I don't know if that
Right,
counts.
it's holiday party season, so it's very difficult. So we are either going to. I think my brother is going to see it like at midnight tonight by himself, maybe. And then he can't wait. He's too excited.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a hall pass. Well, I guess not a hall pass when you're going to see Star Wars movies, but
Right.
you get to go see Star Wars at midnight tonight. I think we're going to try to do something right after Christmas as well, when we have maybe an extra day.
Is he going to be good about not doing the spoilers and
I think
all that?
he'll be pretty
Or
good.
is he
He's
just
well
not going to
trained.
be able to contain himself?
He's very well trained.
Okay.
Like his wife's got him on a regimented schedule of speaking about Star Wars. So
Wow.
we're gonna try to find time
that
following
is
the holiday.
organized.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait. I don't know if I'll
You
be able to
going
get to
tonight
it.
or no?
I'm not going tonight. Although I might. Oh, Keith is going tonight. Not cool. Keith is going tonight.
Oh,
really?
not cool, Keith. Did you plan ahead?
I did. I'm a planner as well.
Yeah. This
maybe
we know
not to
about.
that
Did you fill out a
level,
Google Doc?
but yeah, looking forward to it. Taking the fam. It'll be a good time.
Are you?
Are you at
Wow.
midnight?
6 o'clock.
Oh, 6 o'clock.
Is I
There's
started
a
at 6.
special, advanced screening type deal.
You got one because we're part of Disney. No?
Oh no, this is just. It was an
Local
email
theater.
that I got from our local theater, and I said, "Yeah, let's do this." So, yeah, the kids are very
Wow.
excited.
Are your kids Star Wars fans?
They really are. Yeah, all of them, even our 6-year-old. She's
That's
So
amazing.
That's gonna be so
I
much
walked in
fun.
the other day. Beth had the I think Empire was on, like cable or something like that,
It
and
was
they were
on all
watching like the
weekend,
last 20
yeah.
minutes of it. Yeah, and I walked in and one of my 6-year-olds was like, "Daddy, I love R2D2." I was like, "Oh, you just made my day."
Yeah.
It was the greatest thing. And Kyle still has to watch 4 other movies before he can understand what's going
Kyle
on.
just
One
threw up on the
left
screen
that I
that
started
Keith
with.
is doing a book report.
Yeah.
and
Reading it tomorrow.
Love
Yeah,
that
no,
or not, that would be so many spoiler alerts.
Oh, I
Forget
say
it.
ruin it for everyone. That would
Yeah.
be bad. I will not do that.
No,
Yeah,
no.
Keith would never be allowed
I
back
have
on the
integrity.
podcast.
Fantasy news from the National Football League. This is the instant replay.
All right, a lot of news to get to.
Yes,
and
sir.
this again, I want to stress this a lot, and we say it a lot, but you have potentially just 2 weeks left in your fantasy season. Maybe you play until week 17.
ESPN standard leagues do play till week 17.
Right.
Yes.
But for those who have modified the settings, you might only
Sure.
play through week 16. We don't want you to overthink too much stuff. So we're going to streamline our content to the players that truly, truly matter.
Right. In fairness, if they listen to this show, fairly certain they don't think too much.
That's a good point. But let's get to some of the
We're
news.
preaching to the choir, as they say.
Let's get to some of the news and some players that were perhaps either new injuries, Stephania, or notable injuries. And we begin in Minnesota with Kyle Rudolph, the tight end.
Yeah, he didn't practice yesterday because of his ankle. He actually had a walking boot on after last week's game, so something to keep an eye on. Haven't heard yet how much likelihood there is of him playing or not, but it was not a surprise that, at least for yesterday, he was off, so stay tuned on him.
Yeah, for Minnesota, part of the allure of this offense is they have so many good weapons at every single spot, right? 2 good wide receivers. You got a good tight end in Kyle Rudolph. Not sure this impacts the Case Keenum value too much as of yet. But again, if you roster Kyle Rudolph, there are so few readily available tight ends that you trust going forward. Certainly got to hope for the best here for him going into Sunday against Cincinnati.
Yeah. Bengals are fairly middle of the pack against opposing tight ends, but did give up 885 and a touchdown last week to the Bears.
Yep.
They gave up to 80 yards to Cleveland a couple of weeks ago in week 12. So, yeah, if Rudolph's active, you're obviously starting him.
Leonard Fournette, Stephania, he's been battling that ankle injury for quite some time.
But the reason he didn't practice on Wednesday was because of his quad. So this is something new, and that's why it raises my eyebrows a little bit. Because
Let's see. Let me see. There. Whoa, there we go.
I
Nice.
see you, Stephania. We got
that's
these.
right.
Yeah. I
That's
like
right.
that.
So she's trying to steal some of my eyebrows weakness.
That's true. Both of your eyebrows are on fleek. Let's be honest. Mine are just like whatever.
Yours exist.
Mine exist.
Which
is
they're
about-
still there, which
Yeah,
is
they're
good.
still there.
You don't
But-
yet have like the long, like extended, like really curly
No.
eyebrow hairs.
Well, where I am at my life in terms of where I have hair and where I don't have hair, I just have to tell you that I am excited the fact that I don't have a unibrow. Like, it's not about trying to get a good eyebrow game. It's about like, oh, I don't have a unibrow? Sweet.
Well,
Like, it's just for me, it's just, can I just
The little
avoid the
victories, I
negative?
get it.
Right. Yeah.
I'm very locked in on NBA. You guys know that, and I really, really love NBA. We all play in this basketball
Let me
league.
guess
together.
what you were going to talk about.
Some of us play, some of
I
us
was
aren't
just going
very
to say,
good.
you talking about me?
No,
My team's struggling right now. But
no, I was talking about Stephania because I'm killing Stephania this week.
Oh, I saw that.
Oh, are you?
Destroying her, yeah.
However, that's neither here nor there.
It's because Anthony Davis Curry's injured.
Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis makes unibrows really
yes,
cool. So
100%.
26
and
last
by the
night
way,
for him.
Anthony Davis on my fantasy team in our league. My
26
fantasy team,
points and 10 of 16 shooting with 4 blocks. Like that's great production for you.
He's unbelievable when he's healthy.
Yes,
it's been frustrating. He misses a lot of games.
So we have completely derailed this. Leonard Fournette, the injury update here on Leonard Fournette, as Stephania noted, he has a quad issue. And Matthew, it's early on in the week, but certainly something to keep in mind. And if we got to the point where there was a threat of him not playing on Sunday, Chris Ivory, TJ Yeldon could float back into the fantasy sort of relevance sphere.
Yeah, potentially. Although, we've talked about this. We talked about this, I think, yesterday's show, right? Or 2 days ago. Sorry, I wasn't here yesterday. I was doing the TV show yesterday. But 2 days ago, we talked about this. I think that actually upgrades Blake Bortles, that they might have to throw more. And we've talked about, how good Bortles has actually been, bortling his way to fantasy relevance. And this is certainly a good matchup. You think about the Texans, who they obviously the Jaguars play. Texans, that's a good matchup for Jacksonville.
How about Mike Wallace, Stephania, the Ravens wide receiver, who has actually been pretty good of late. He has 9.8 points in, I believe, 4 of his last 5 games.
Yeah, we've seen him in the injury report in the past because of his back so far this year. This time it's his ankle, caused him to be out for a few plays during the game, but it doesn't sound like it's a serious issue. Nonetheless, did not practice on Wednesday, so he's another one to be keeping an eye on.
Deeper league consideration only, but someone that certainly of late has played better. Amari Cooper, Stephania, he played last Sunday, sort of. I mean, he quickly got re-injured.
Got aggravated the ankle, left the game.
Yeah.
Jack Del Rio is calling him day-to-day, but still not practicing at the start of this week. He's one I'd be concerned.
Hear that? That's the sound of speechless. Like when you give her an unforgettable gift from Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. Whether it's one of the hundreds of new pieces in our collection, one of the exclusive pieces you can only find at Jared, or a custom piece we create just for you, Jared is the place to find the gift.
I love it.
That takes her breath away. And that's why he went to Jared.
Looking to up your bourbon game? Larceny Wheated Bourbon is the key. It's an award-winning small batch bourbon made with more wheat for a smoother taste. Get caught in the act. Larceny Wheated Bourbon, Bardstown, Kentucky. 46% alcohol by volume. Think wisely, drink wisely.
Our new presenting sponsor is ZipRecruiter. Are you looking for a smarter way to hire great candidates?
Obviously.
With ZipRecruiter, 80% of employers who post a job get a quality candidate to the site in just 1 day. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. That's ZipRecruiter.com/06010.
Where I am at my life, in terms of where I have hair and where I don't have hair, I just have to tell you that I am excited the fact that I don't have a unibrow.
You're in the 06010. Never gonna hustle in case you didn't know. Matthew Berry, TMR.
You guys go ahead, give me grief for being on SportsCenter for 45 seconds. I think you could do better than me because I don't think you could.
Jailbait, Field Yates.
You're terrible at hashtag improv. At Field Yates. At Field Yates.
Stephania Bell.
Oh, don't let Barry convert you.
Secret Squirrel, Daniel Dodd.
Make it happen.
Mediocre fantasy advice.
You're older than people realize.
That never stops.
Loyal 06010 listener.
The playoffs continue. Welcome into
Playoffs?
Playoffs.
Never gets old.
Week 15
Yes, sir.
begins tonight. It is the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. My name is Field Yates. Matthew Berry is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Looking very summery today. I like that. It's
you know
snowing
what?
outside.
Just because it's snowing, it's exactly right. I've got. I'm very field-esque.
I was going to say, I'm rubbing off on you.
You
huh?
really are.
Yeah.
What color would you describe my jacket?
It sort of has like a. It's a heathered blue, sort of a sea breeze heathered blue. Stephania, how did I do on that?
Good. I was going to go with periwinkle blue.
Yeah, periwinkle also works. Yeah.
What, Secret Squirrel?
I said periwinkle in here. I swear I said periwinkle.
If no one heard you, doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
Great minds think
Keith
alike.
heard me.
What?
Keith
Keith is shaking his head.
Damn, that is not fair.
I don't listen to Daniel.
Oh, you are
Smart.
such a jerk.
Smart.
Great minds think alike, and a nice gingham gingham shirt, I would say. So
Yeah,
looking
exactly.
very
trying to bring. Thank you.
Gingham,
Trying to
isn't
bring a
that
little.
what you say by your Aggies? Gingham?
It's Gingham, Stephania. Are you excited for the Star Wars? It's Happy Star Wars Week to you.
Happy Star Wars Week to you as well. You know what's funny is, so in my family, I'm one of three, as many know on this podcast. My brother is like, Taylor Yates was put on this earth to enjoy Star Wars. He's obsessed. So like maybe a month and a half ago, and my brother, an incredible guy and brainiac, all that stuff. Him and his wife are like the ultimate planners. And like rather than being like
More than you?
like they put me to shame.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
I had that same reaction.
Trust me. And congrats to them. They're now they moved into their new home this week, and so they're all like they're figuring a lot of stuff out. And my brother sends us a note like a month and a half ago, like, hey, sends a family note, and it's like, hi, I'm like emailing to gauge interest on potentially seeing Star Wars as a family when it comes out. And like, please fill out the following questionnaire. And it's like 3 or 4 questions. It's like 1, do you have interest in seeing Star Wars? Yes. It's like 2.
It's a logic tree. What are those called? It's like what are those called? You know, like it's a logic tree or something like that. What's the? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
2, if you don't have interest in seeing Star Wars, would you be willing to babysit Asher, who's my brother's son, my nephew? So I'm like, maybe I should just say no to 1 so I can hang out with my nephew, who's the man, right? Like,
Right, of course. Yeah.
It's like 3. It's like which of the following days work, and then after we figure it out, it's like we get an
What
e-bite.
character would you like to dress as?
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So,
Did you got an Evite?
Yes.
You got
Please
an
no.
Evite?
Please no. Finn and BB-8 are not available.
Right. Yeah. BB-8's been taken care of. Chewbacca. Again, it'd be
Would you
Chewbacca.
like to buy the popcorn or the drinks?
Right. So he's
Who would like to park the car while the other goes to wait in line for the refreshments?
It's all Google Calendar.
Of course,
it is.
Because my sister-in-law works for Google, so it's all it's all part of the plan. So again, they're the brainiacs, right? Like they're the smart
What did you
ones.
check? So what did you
I
check?
know. Don't leave us
What's
hanging.
going on with you and Chapin?
Of course, we said yes. As it turned out, this weekend specifically, like we have it's holiday party season.
Sure, of
as you
course.
guys know that. So like.
I'm
Friday
told
night,
that. I don't get invited very often, but
Field's on the circuit.
Yeah, of course.
So
I'm
very
not.
busy.
Friday night, so
But I see a lot of Instagram posts of people at holiday parties. I don't know if that counts.
Right, it's holiday party season, so it's very difficult. So we are either going to. I think my brother is going to see it like at midnight tonight by himself, maybe. And then he can't wait. He's too excited.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a hall pass. Well, I guess not a hall pass when you're going to see Star Wars movies, but you get to go see Star Wars at midnight tonight. I think we're going to try to do something right after Christmas as well, when we have maybe an extra day.
Is he going to be good about not doing the spoilers and
I think
all that?
he'll be pretty
Or
good.
is he
He's
just
well
not gonna
trained.
be able to contain himself?
He's very well trained.
Okay.
Like his wife's got him on a regimented schedule of speaking about Star Wars. So
wow,
we're gonna try to find time
that
following
is
the holiday.
organized.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait. I don't know if I'll be able to get
tonight
to it.
or no?
I'm not going tonight. Although I might. Oh, Keith is going tonight. Not cool. Keith is going tonight.
Oh,
really?
not cool, Keith. Did you plan ahead?
I did. I'm a planner as well.
Yeah. This
maybe
we know
not
about.
to that
Did you fill out a
level,
Google Doc?
but yeah, looking forward to it. Taking the fam. It'll be a good time.
Are you?
Wow.
At midnight?
6 o'clock.
Oh, 6 o'clock.
I
There's
started
a
at 6.
special, advanced screening type
Oh,
deal.
you got one because we're part of Disney. No?
Oh no, this is just it was an
Local
email
theater.
that I got from our local theater, and I said, yeah, let's do this. So yeah, the kids are
Wow.
very excited.
Are your kids Star Wars fans?
They really are. Yeah, all of them, even our 6-year-old. She's
That's
So
amazing.
That's gonna be so
I
much
walked in
fun.
the other day. Beth had the I think Empire was on, like cable or something like that,
It
and
was
they were
on all
watching like the
weekend,
last 20
yeah.
minutes of it. Yeah, and I walked in and one of my 6-year-olds was like, "Daddy, I love R2-D2." I was like, "Oh, you just made my day."
Yeah.
It was the greatest thing. And Kyle still has to watch 4 other movies before he can understand what's going
Kyle
on.
just
One
threw up on
left
the screen
that I
that
started
Keith
with.
is doing a book report.
Yeah.
and
Reading it tomorrow.
Love
Yeah,
that or not, that would be so many spoiler alerts.
Oh, I
Forget
say
it.
ruin it for everyone. That would be bad. I will not do that.
No, no.
Keith would never be allowed
I
back
have
on the
integrity.
podcast.
Rewind. Fantasy
News from the National Football League.
This is the instant replay.
All right, a lot of news to get to.
Yes,
and
sir.
this, again, I want to stress this a lot, and we say it a lot, but you have potentially just 2 weeks left in your fantasy season. Maybe you play until week 17.
ESPN standard leagues do play till week 17.
Right.
Yes.
But for those who have modified the settings, you might only
Sure.
play through week 16. We don't want you to overthink too much stuff. So we're going to streamline our content to the players that truly, truly matter.
Right. In fairness, if they listen to this show, fairly certain they don't think too much.
That's a good point. But let's get to some of the news.
We're preaching to the choir, as they say.
Let's get to some of the news and some players that were perhaps either new injuries, Stephania, or notable injuries. And we begin in Minnesota with Kyle Rudolph, the tight end.
Yeah, he didn't practice yesterday because of his ankle. He actually had a walking boot on after last week's game, so something to keep an eye on. Haven't heard yet how much likelihood there is of him playing or not, but it was not a surprise that, at least for yesterday, he was off, so stay tuned on him.
Yeah, for Minnesota, part of the allure of this offense is they have so many good weapons at every single spot, right? 2 good wide receivers. You got a good tight end in Kyle Rudolph. Not sure this impacts the Case Keenum value too much as of yet. But again, if you roster Kyle Rudolph, there are so few readily available tight ends that you trust going forward. Certainly got to hope for the best here for him going into Sunday against Cincinnati.
Yeah, Bengals are fairly middle of the pack against opposing tight ends, but did give up 885 and a touchdown last week to the Bears. Yep. They gave up to 80 yards to Cleveland a couple of weeks ago in Week 12. So, yeah, if Rudolph's active, you're obviously starting him.
Leonard Fournette, Stephania, he's been battling that ankle injury for quite some time.
But the reason he didn't practice on Wednesday was because of his quad. So this is something new, and that's why it raises my eyebrows a little bit. Because
Let me see. There we go.
I see you, Stephania. We got
that's
these.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
So she's trying to steal some of my eyebrow weakness.
That's true. Both of your eyebrows are on fleek. Let's be honest. Mine are just like whatever.
Yours exist.
Mine exist.
They're still there, which is good.
They're still there.
You don't yet have like the long, extended, really curly eyebrow hairs.
Where I am at my life in terms of where I have hair and where I don't have hair, I just have to tell you that I am excited the fact that I don't have a unibrow. It's not about trying to get a good eyebrow game. It's about I don't have a unibrow? Sweet. Well, it's just for me. It's just can I just avoid the negative, right? Yeah.
I'm very locked in on NBA. You guys know that, and I really love NBA. We all play in this basketball league.
I guess what you're going to talk about.
Some of us play. Some of us aren't very good.
you talking about me?
No.
My team's struggling right now. But
I was talking about Stephania. I'm killing Stephania this week.
Oh, I saw that.
Wow.
We did a fake commercial on the TV show, and
it was a real commercial.
Well, yeah, it was fun. Yeah, for a calendar actually. Yeah. But anyway, you go to calendars.com, you search for Fantasy Life. So the point is that the good people at ACCO Calendars, ACCO, enjoyed the process so much, and I guess the calendar's doing well, that they've asked to do another calendar. And so you're like, why are you telling me this, Matthew? And I'll tell you why. Because you, the people listening to this, have a chance to be in the calendar. One of the things that is part of the calendar, like there's fantasy football trivia and facts and hints, and it's a bunch of different stuff. But one of the things that is obviously fantasy life stories. Funny pictures of loser punishments, very cool trophies, whatever great traditions you have, draft day traditions, whatever. We want to hear about your league, how you guys celebrate fantasy life. So if you would like to be in the calendar, if you would like you and or your league or your punishment or your trophy or whatever to be in the calendar, to be world famous and be hanging on people's walls, just go to myfantasylifestory.com. myfantasylifestory.com, and you can submit it there. We still have, at least 10 to 20 sort of spots open for the 2019 calendar, obviously. So, the way that
this is really cool.
Calendar parts. But yeah, anyway, so myfantasylifestory.com and submit it. And, we could use it in the calendar or for something else as well. So just if you have a cool thing, I think it'd be fun.
Very nice. I got to tell you, there are a lot of things that we talk about that are kind of becoming antiquated in our society. Do you really no one has a house phone anymore. You have your cell phone, but a calendar might be something that would be viewed as antiquated. But I still use a calendar daily. Now, maybe it's because I travel back and forth and it's hard to keep up with where we are.
I think it's sometimes it's decorative or whatever.
Right.
It's one of those things that's because with the Fantasy Life brand, I have all these meetings, everything, not during the season, but I've learned a lot about sort of kind of this space, and it's interesting that because of we're such an electronic, world right now, right, and we're so impersonal sometimes because between texting and social media, whatever, that actually you would think it must be dying, and the truth of the matter is stuff like calendars and greeting cards actually do even better these days because people still want that personal touch because we are so impersonal sometimes because we're so busy texting and Snapchatting and Instagramming and whatever it is. So
pen to paper. There's nothing better.
Pen to paper. And
flipping pages like a calendar.
That's right.
I'm with you.
So, yeah.
Time now for a game preview.
Game preview.
All right, last Thursday night game of the year. Last one. It's a bummer, but it's the reality of the NFL scheduling, and we have the Broncos traveling.
So not a bummer. I was just thinking to myself, absolutely not a bummer. That this is the last Thursday night game? Not a bummer.
Well, the Broncos travel to Indianapolis to play the Colts for the Denver side, Stephania. I'm not aware of any injuries.
Now, none that really matter. I mean, in terms of fantasy purposes, the out for the Denver Broncos, Paxton Lynch, you already knew about that, and nobody really was worried. Emmanuel Sanders is off the injury report going into the game. Dante Moncrief, if you were looking for some desperation receiver, I don't know why, but just letting you know, he is already ruled out for the game. And Frank Gore, who we talked about being banged up after last week's game in the snow, off the injury report heading into tonight's game. Once again, he's a star.
He is a stud. He is so reliable. He is going to play, even though he is probably very, very sore right now. Matthew, on the Broncos side, I think it comes down to this. You're in the playoffs. You're in the semifinals of your league. Are you really considering any Denver running back tonight?
No. Like, I think you and I both have C.J. Anderson as an RB4, right? I mean, he's frankly been inefficient, 2.98 yards per carry over the last month.
Yep.
You know, you've got Devontae Booker and Jamal Charles in the mix as well. It's not a particularly explosive offense. And then you think about this Colts defense, which, believe it or not, actually not terrible. Colts, since week 8, giving up just 3.68 yards per carry. They're seventh best in terms of rushing touchdowns allowed, 1.5 yards per carry after first contact, and they're fourth best in terms of fantasy points to opposing running backs. Obviously, McCoy had a huge game against them last week, but I don't know that that's a fair, assessment of their skill. I mean, they're playing in snow, and it's, McCoy touched the ball, I believe, this is an actual number, 4 zillion times.
Right, I think it was actually that many. Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Right.
Listen, I'm with you. It's very difficult to trust any Denver Broncos running back. I think the only player you kind of trust on this roster offensively is Demaryius Thomas, who's right on the precipice of being a wide receiver 2 for us. You've got him at 23. I've got him at 21. Consensus ranks is 21 as well. He's got 10 or more targets in consecutive games and a touchdown in 4 of his last 6 games. I would just say this. That game last Sunday was the best I've seen him look in quite some time. Like, he was dominant in that game for the Denver Broncos. I know that it was a bad Jets team they were playing, or a team that played poorly on that Sunday, but Demaryius Thomas looked like that freak we at one point knew as a weekly fixture of our lineups.
And the Colts secondary doesn't scare you at all. So many injuries in that Colts secondary. I would agree with you. So Demaryius Thomas, low-end wide receiver 2, high-end wide receiver 3, but boy, it'd be tough for me to start Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, same here. I understand he has it in him to potentially get you.
Oh, sure. It wouldn't surprise me if tomorrow we're talking about him having a big game, but
it also wouldn't surprise me if he had a game with 3 points tonight.
Last 4 weeks, he's wide receiver 92.
Yeah.
In total points.
That tells you everything you need to know right there for Emmanuel Sanders. On the Colts side, Stephania mentioned Frank Gore. He was limited at one point this week, but he's got the hand issue. He is going to play. You've got him at 23, Matthew. Actually, the highest amongst the rankers. I'm having a hard time talking myself into starting Frank Gore in a deep league. This sort of feels like one of those games on a short week, him banged up, the way that Denver Broncos defense played. There was some talk. There was some speculation, at least conversation. If the Broncos fell to 3-13, could Vance Joseph's job, and this was not saying like people, it was more of like a conversation. It wasn't reporting. It was just, hey, if they go 3-13, are we going to be asking, does Vance Joseph go one and done? And maybe last week's effort was in part a response to the players say like that's ridiculous. But that Denver Broncos defense was way back on track last week, and that scares me. It scares me for Frank Gore tonight.
I don't blame you at all. The only reason and by the way, we all have him as a running back 3.
Right.
But maybe I'm slightly higher than you just because of the volume. At least 16 carries in 5 of his last 6 games. My feeling is that even on the short week, he's probably still going to get 15 or more carries. One of the things you have to always look at this is like, what's a team likely to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I know the Colts want to do, just because the season hasn't gone the way they want it to, is Frank Gore is really beloved on that team. And there's a number of personal milestones that, Gore is chasing, obviously, at this stage in his career.
Yep.
And I think they want to help him get there.
Yep.
I mean, as dumb as that sounds, that's literally, again, as we would talk about, in terms of football team politics and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like something they want to do for a guy they really like.
Well, for just along those lines, he is less than 275 yards away from surpassing Curtis Martin for fourth on the all-time rushing list.
Yeah.
So maybe that's out of reach in 3 more games, but it's not entirely out of reach. They probably are determined. They need to average, according to Mike Wells, who covers the Colts for us here at ESPN, 91.7 yards over the final 3 games to pass Martin.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I think we'll see if he can get there. Hopefully he can. It would be great. He's a warrior. But the fact of the matter is that some of that is just going to have to come from volume.
And then you also have, this week specifically, Matthew, you have T.Y. Hilton on the hate list. You've got him basically, borderline unranked. It's just such a difficult matchup against Denver, despite what the numbers say about the passing touchdowns. That's still a really good secondary.
100%. And over his last 8 games, he's got 345 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Yep.
175 and 2 touchdowns of them came against Houston in Week 9. The rest, he's been brutal.
Yep.
I mean, you have him as a wide receiver 4. I have him as a wide receiver 5.
Right. Yep. And along those lines, Matthew, like for a while, Jacoby Brissett we were like, oh,
yes, he was.
Kind of playing
there's
okay.
Something, yeah, and then he's
of late
regressed.
Hasn't completed over 58.6% of his passes since November 5th. 222, 196, 174, 69 yards in his past 4 games. Like I don't say the good times have cooled for Jacoby Brissett, but he's sort of the entire offense has kind of come back down to earth, so to speak, during this 4-game losing streak. I'm with you. I think I'd have a hard time starting T.Y. Hilton. I think if you're starting him, what you're normally I'd say if you're starting him, you're hoping for a couple of big plays. The problem is, I just don't see big plays happening against this Denver Broncos defense.
No. And because their corners are so good, which is one of the reasons why I do think Jack Doyle is a viable play. I have him inside my top 6. You think about the Broncos, who have allowed a touchdown to an opposing tight end 5 of their last 7 games.
Yep.
They give up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing tight ends.
Yep.
And, the last 5 games that Doyle has played, when he wasn't facing the Steelers or the Jaguars, both of whom, some pretty solid defenses, 17 fantasy points per game. He's averaging that. I just think part of the reason is how do you move the ball against Denver? And that's one of the reasons why. So I think especially in PPR, you could see, it add up for Jack Doyle.
I'm with you there. I'd be a little bit lower, but again, it's tight end. So they're sort of all, it's like the first group of elite tight ends and then the next group of guys you're hoping for the best with. I will take on the road the Denver Broncos in this game. How about you, Matthew?
Yeah, I will. No, give me the Colts. Screw it.
Daniel?
The Colts at home.
Or Stephania?
Yeah, I don't like either one, but I'll take the Broncos.
I'm so far behind in Pigskin Pick. I'm like, I just
right?
gotta pretty much do the opposite and just try to.
I am going to take the Broncos.
Okay, there we have it. We have a 3-1 edge in favor of the Broncos. Let's get to a couple of players that maybe we have some questions on because of their new quarterback or just sort of the rankings. And we begin with Alshon Jeffrey. And Alshon Jeffrey, who of course is the Eagles' top wide receiver, is our insight of the week informed by IBM Watson. He's averaging 17.3 points over his last 6 games. But Watson has a ceiling. It's just 17.8 points in the first game post-Wentz. Matthew, are you feeling good about Jeffrey in this spot? Because you have him ranked 7 slots higher than I do.
6 touchdowns in his last 6 games. He's a very talented wide receiver. And I don't think, I'm not saying Nick Foles is Carson Wentz, but I think full week of practice, in that offense, knowing what Alshon Jeffrey means to it, knowing how much volume we'll see, and then knowing, frankly, just how brutal the Giants have been, 26 against the pass over the last 4 weeks. Yeah, give me some Alshon Jeffrey. I think the volume will be there, and I think Foles will be a competent NFL quarterback in this system, in this certainly this week. You know what I mean? He's not Carson Wentz, but I think he will be a competent NFL quarterback.
Our buddy Mike Clay feels very confident in Nick Foles. He has him inside of his top 10 for quarterback rankings this week. I'm a little bit more skeptical. I still have Jeffrey as a wide receiver too, but maybe there's an element of wanting to see it before I believe it. Nick Foles' 2013 season that's decidedly different than anything else close to any player, any season he's had elsewhere in the NFL.
This is all very, very true.
Again, another wide receiver who's dealing with a quarterback switch is Robbie Anderson for the Jets. There was a while now where he was a top 15 play, Matthew. but no Josh McCown, and a difficult matchup here. Is he even a flex consideration for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm his wide receiver 30 in my my initial ranks right now. So he's, borderline flex play here. The argument for him is that Bryce Petty's going to start, and they did have a connection towards the end of last year. Like, that's how Robbie Anderson sort of came on the radar in the first place, right? You probably see a decent amount of Marshawn Lattimore in this one, but still, they're playing on the turf
in New Orleans.
New Orleans. He's so fast. All he needs is one, and they're going to have to take some shots.
Yep.
So, yeah, he's certainly boom or bust. You certainly feel less confident about him with Petty under center than you did with McCown.
Right.
And it's not a great matchup, but I don't know it's one that you're like, whoa, don't start anyone. You know what I mean? Like, if McCown were still starting, he'd be 10 spots higher.
I truly, honestly believe this could be a great junk time opportunity for Robbie Anderson. Wouldn't surprise me at all if this game is out of hand early, and next thing you know, Anderson is catching passes late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean, they do, the Saints blitz a lot,
right?
And so sometimes if you see that coverage and you get out of it and get it quick, then you're in one-on-one coverage, and Robbie Anderson can take it to the house.
You know that I love one of your favorite expressions is like, you had me at something. And when I say Tampa Bay, that's the defense that Mohamed Sanu is facing. He makes your love list for Week 15. I'm assuming part of it is you had me at Tampa Bay.
Second most completions, highest completion percentage allowed, third most yards, tied for the most touchdowns allowed to slot receivers, which is obviously where Mohamed Sanu plays. So you and I both have him as a top 25 play this week. He's been terrific. 11 or more fantasy points in 6 of the last 8. Now, the fear here, Field Yates, is that Julio Jones has another crazy game here, and Mohamed Sanu isn't one of the people throwing him a touchdown pass.
You think so?
That's what happened last time.
I guess that would be.
But I don't think Julio's going to have a very nice game. But yeah, give me Mo Sanu against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense as a top 25 player.
For what it's worth, at this point of the year where
he made the love list.
You consider he made the love list for Week 15. You may consider every factor, really every week of the season, but you start to focus your attention a little bit more in the playoffs. It looks like a perfect night in Tampa Bay on Monday night.
Yeah.
71 degrees, 0% as of right now, and I'm looking way ahead. 1% chance of rain, like a beautiful day. It's overcast, but still very warm, so not worried about conditions. You know that rain can always be a factor in Florida. So Mohamed Sanu, certainly a player that's definitely on the radar in the playoffs because he probably is on a bunch of playoff teams and a daily consideration as well. It's time now to be joined by our friend of the podcast, presented by Bud Light, Al Zeidenfeld. Good morning, Al. You're preparing to travel to Miami. What's the deal?
Well, right after we tape this segment right here, I have to get in a car and get to the airport because I'm flying to Miami for the World Fantasy Football Championships this weekend. $2 million up top, $1 million to second. I happen to win a seat in one of those weeks earlier this season where I kind of crushed it, and I'm really excited about it.
How many people will be participating in this event?
There are 200 runners in the event.
Okay.
Some people have multiple seats. I have one ticket. That's really all I usually go after in these live finals. So I've got my seat to the dance, and I'm hoping to get Boogie in on Sunday afternoon.
Congratulations to you, Al. I'm sure we'll be following along as you can on Twitter, Al Zeidenfeld, for updates Sunday afternoon and, heck, all day Sunday. Al, let's begin with your Week 15 daily picks. And there are a lot of people that are probably seeing an uptick in their daily usage because their season-long leagues might be over. Let's begin with a quarterback wide receiver stack that you are intrigued by. And Jacksonville at one point this season, their head coach, Doug Marrone, said, ideally, we might throw the football 0 times. That hasn't been the case of late, but they have been winning, and Blake Bortles kind of compelling.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that can get new players' daily fantasy excited than telling them, hey, Blake Bortles is somebody you should consider, but here we are in Week 15. He's only 5,700. This is a salary game. We really need about 16 fantasy points from him for your head-to-head games to pay off this salary. A little more than 3x his value. He's averaging 16.6 on the season, so this is a really good spot for him to kind of exercise that. Houston, one of the best targets that we've been going after all year with quarterbacks and with wide receivers. Bortles 3 straight games with multiple touchdowns, counting the game where he had 2 on the ground 3 weeks ago. Houston allowing 21.8 quarterback points when not facing in-division opponents. And you could stack him with D.D. Westbrook, who's been outstanding, a revelation since he's really gotten onto the field, just piling up targets, him and Marquise Lee with the injuries that have been around them. Coming off of a game where he had 8 targets, 9 the week before, 10 the week before that, gotten into the end zone last week finally. And he's only 5,100. Marquise Lee 58, D.D. Westbrook 51. This week is going to be really hard to find value, so we're going to struggle to get there in terms of finding low-priced players. So I'll take the 700 in savings to come down from Lee to get to D.D. Westbrook running up against those Houston DBs.
You know who agrees with you is Matthew Berry, who has D.D. Westbrook on his love list for Week 15. You laid out a bunch of the stats there, Al, but you mentioned the target share over the past 3 weeks, at least 8 in each of those 3 games. Also, at least 5 catches in 3 straight games. And you mentioned the touchdown, which I've said this already on the podcast this week. That might have been my favorite touchdown dance of the year. I'm not sure what you call it. I don't think I could even do it if I had a million years to perfect it. But D.D. Westbrook found the end zone, and that one certainly made the day and daily and probably season long as well.
You know, I was going to say, Al, you know who else loves D.D. Westbrook?
Who's that?
Me.
Oh,
it was my
Stephania.
value pick of the week for our DFS column.
Is that right?
So, see, there you go.
Yeah.
See, Stephania and
I think
Al.
me and Stephania would make a good daily fantasy team if we would if there was tag team DFS.
Yes.
That's right. Like,
me and
no
Stephania
need to
would be
flip a table. It's just, I wanted to support you in this one.
A lot of intellectual
appreciate it.
horsepower between you two. Moving on to a star building block, because sometimes, Al, the best thing you can do in daily is actually not overthink things too much and go with the guys that you might have as a staple of your season-long lineup. Le'Veon Bell, case in point.
Exactly. Week 14, there was a ton of value out there. And so we kind of came up with this thing, just play the dudes. And that kind of, play the right guys, play the big studs. That's what we're doing this week with Le'Veon Bell. He is 9,300 in one of the highest profile games of the year. Should be a really high scoring game this year, coming off of a massive game last week where he had 39 fantasy points, 29, 32, 39 each of the last 3 weeks. Essentially, you're getting a wide receiver 1 here. When you pay up for Le'Veon Bell, he's got the 9th most receptions in the league, not for running backs, in the league total. So he's ahead of guys like Julio Jones, ahead of guys like Travis Kelce. You're getting that, and you're also getting a running back who typically gets 20-plus carries in a game, gets all the goal line work as well. New England allowing a league-high 4.95 yards per carry. That's where they're going to attack. It's impossible for Bill Belichick, who likes to take the opponent's favorite toy away from them. Impossible to do that with Le'Veon Bell, as much as they move him around and get him involved, not just in the backfield, but in the slot, and moving him out to get him isolated against linebackers. Probably going to target Antonio Brown here to take away, which means Le'Veon Bell going to get his lion's share of the work like he normally does.
I mean, every single week, Al. It's remarkable to think that Le'Veon Bell, who is the best running back in football, by the way, so I do not intend to lay this stat out to suggest anything otherwise, but he only has 2 runs longer than 20 yards this year. He's averaging 3.9 yards per carry. If I gave you those numbers in a vacuum, you'd think there's no way that guy is the runaway best fantasy football running back and best running back, period. But Le'Veon Bell's volume is as trusted and true as there is in the NFL. Let's move it out to the rest of the roster. And if you are looking at a quarterback, might Cam Newton be on your radar?
Cam Newton is one of my favorite tournament quarterbacks pretty much every week. You don't always need to pair him with somebody. You can this week with Funchess. That would be fine as far as I'm concerned, considering the matchup with Green Bay. There has been a very distinct floor with Cam Newton because as we can look back at his game log, 5 of his last 6 games under 200 yards passing, but his rushing ability has really taken a step forward to the old Cam Newton that we saw before. 5 goal to go carries since week 8, the same number as LaShawn McCoy and Le'Veon Bell. So he's getting that usage inside the 10, inside the 5, which is really what's giving him the ability to have that 30-point, 35-point game that he's had twice this year. Not many other quarterbacks can say that in a career, let alone in one season. Green Bay, the 3rd worst red zone defense and 8th worst goal to go defense. Cam Newton has the ability to throw for touchdowns this week, should get over 200 yards. I love the fact that Aaron Rodgers is back for this game because with Hundley at the helm, Green Bay has been playing exceptionally slow, very slow pace.
Yes.
With Rodgers back, they will probably play a lot faster. The total went up 3.5 points from the moment that he posted that on Instagram. Guess what's happened there? Instagram is moving team totals now. So I
would
love
have called that back in
I
would have called that back in at least the summer of 2017.
See, there you go. At least 3 months ago.
That's right. I had massive foresight.
So here we are. I mean, Cam Newton in a better offensive environment against a team that has no idea how to stop the pass and really can't stop the run inside the 5-yard line. I really like Cam Newton this week at only 6,400.
Al, I listened closely to all of your suggestions throughout the season. One trend that I've noticed is that if a player plays particularly well on Monday night, sort of out of nowhere, or unfortunately a player gets injured on Monday night, because pricing is set prior to Monday Night Football, you can take advantage of things that happen on Monday night's action. Kenyon Drake would be an example of such. He played remarkable on Monday night, looked like, heck, a Pro Bowl running back. And this week, because of that pricing prior to the game, he represents a great value.
And you know what's really impressive about it? He reached that value on volume alone. He did not score a touchdown, but he did have 114 yards rushing, 79 yards receiving, 5 receptions, 30 touches overall, and he's not priced as such at only 5,800. So 27 fantasy points coming off of a game the week before. We had 26.1 fantasy points. With Williams out, he's the only show in town. Now he's facing off against one of our favorite teams to stream running backs against, the Buffalo Bills, who have allowed the most fantasy points to opposing running backs. What's not to like here? And when you factor in that he's mispriced, this is a 7K plus running back in the situation that he's in right now. We're getting him at a massive discount, 15-20% discount of probably where he should be priced on a week where we're starved for value. Kenyon Drake's going to probably be the highest owned player on the Sunday slate. I'm going to let somebody else figure out where to make it up. I'm probably just going to take him.
Al, in Arizona, Adrian Peterson, unlikely to play on Sunday. As a matter of fact, his head coach, Bruce Arians, said he has no idea whether he'll even play the rest of 2017. Kerwin Williams, over the past 2 weeks, has handled a big-time volume. Are you convinced that he could be a worthwhile play in daily this week?
We're starved for value this week. Kerwin Williams sitting at 4K without anybody else to compete for touches. He's had 37 touches over the past 2 games, including 1 reception. Not somebody we thought they would pound between the tackles, but that's exactly what they're doing with him. We've got a matchup with Washington, who's allowed 15-plus points against 8 different running backs this year. Kerwin Williams, with the amount of volume that he's getting in this matchup at only $4,000 on DraftKings, represents a really good value play, like I said, in a week where we just can't seem to find it anywhere. Normally, he's not somebody that I'd want to target, and I typically try to target running backs at home in favored situations. But like I said, we're having trouble finding value this week. The pricing is extremely tight. Everybody's up around 5 to 7K that you kind of want to roster. Kerwin Williams allows us to get some volume out of a running back for a very cheap price. If I can get 15 to 20 touches out of him at 4K, we should be able to approach, if not exceed value against an opponent that is ripe for the plucking.
You know, it stands to reason that when you struggle to run the ball, you're going to have a lot of vertical shots in your passing game because you're going to have a lot of second and long and third and long situations. The Seahawks are a good example of that because I felt like last week against the Jaguars, it was just Russell Wilson dropping back, Russell Wilson cranking it up and throwing the football as far down the field as he could. Paul Richardson has a ton of speed. He's a value play for this week as well for you.
Yeah, Paul Richardson. I'm looking for somebody in that Seattle pass attack because Russ Wilson's been outstanding for 8 straight weeks. He's just been on fire. Now, a lot of the red zone usage has gone towards Jimmy Graham, which has taken down a little bit of the wide receivers' value at least, but somebody like Paul Richardson has seen an uptick in his volume. 7 targets last week, 4 the week before, 7 in week 12, 8 in week 11. We're looking at a situation where he's really getting a good amount of volume for 4,600 and not scoring a ton of touchdowns because of his usage in the red zone, but he's not somebody that needs to be near the goal line because he's a little bit of a smaller target. The Rams are a tough opponent typically, but they're missing their top 2 cornerbacks. One of them blew their Achilles tendon, and the other one dealing with concussion protocol. So people are going to look at that opponent's rank and see the red number next to it on DraftKings and say, well, I'm going to steer clear because the Rams are a very good pass defense, but they're not the same defense when you take away their 2 top corners. So Paul Richardson, a little bit underpriced in terms of the value expected here with the injuries that the Rams are dealing with. I really like Paul Richardson this week as a little bit of a salary saver.
Let's bring it home here, Al, with a tight end pick. So hard to find tight ends, period. This week, you think maybe Jesse James can get in on the action in what might be a shootout between the Patriots and the Steelers?
I mean, we've got to punt somewhere. And if you're going to punt somewhere, why not do it with somebody who had 12 targets last week, sitting under 3K in one of the highest scoring games of the week or possibly of the year, where we're getting him a really cheap price point, a lot of expected scoring. And as you said earlier, Bill Belichick is going to try and take something away. If he is able to at least minimize Antonio Brown's usage in the passing attack, somebody like Jesse James could take a very big leap forward inside the red zone. And if it's not going to go to Le'Veon Bell in the red zone, it's probably going to go to Antonio Brown or Jesse James. If they shadow or they bracket Antonio Brown around the red zone, this is where Jesse James is going to shine with his huge frame. Really cheap price, whole lot of upside, and a good amount of floor based on the amount of targets that he's been getting consistently in this offense. Way better than any other tight end that's anywhere close to that same price range.
Al, as always, we appreciate you. Best of luck this weekend. Heck, you're already there. You may not need it from us. You're the one that's already on your way to Miami, but great. Best of luck and great insight, as always, from you.
I'll always take good luck wishes.
All right.
I mean, look, it's a skill game, but you need some luck every now and then to get all the way to the top. So thanks for having me once again, and we'll try and bring it home this week.
We are sending it to you. Great stuff, as always, from Al, who, man, that's got to be really cool. Like, exciting to potentially have $2 million in your pocket by the end of the weekend.
I don't know if it's more exciting or nerve-wracking.
Yeah,
like, to know
terrifying.
that I mean, for him, he's used to it. Like, you know, he's got nerves of steel. He's already proven that. But
right.
I'd be like, I don't know how angry I would get about if I was close. Like, I either want to hit it or I want to be miles away from it.
Right. I get nervous about, like, you know, they have, like, in the office, it's like, guess how many gumballs are in this massive bucket, and, like, whoever guesses closest gets, like, a free month of coffee from the cafeteria. I get nervous when those are the stakes. I can't imagine what I would be feeling if it was $2 million. Not a very relatable thing for the rest of us.
I would have heart palpitations the entire day.
Yes.
I really would.
But he gets to go to Miami through all of it, which all I'm thinking about is how warm it is and how much I'd like to go to Miami right about now.
I certainly could take some Florida weather right now, as we mentioned at the top of the show. A lot of snow here in Connecticut. We're back tomorrow. Tomorrow is our Friday show. You know what that means? We're previewing every single game. Stephania
We'll
be busy scouring injury reports. Yeah, I mean, listen,
this week has gone fast, and it's playoffs, and we got 2 games on Saturday.
That's right.
So
Yeah, looking forward to those on Saturday and
Sunday, Monday. Games.
Here's a vow, a pledge to you guys. We'll try our best to sprinkle in some looking ahead content between now and the end of the season. You know, maybe if we're previewing a game or next week, maybe we'll see if we can find time for like 5 players who aren't being utilized that much this year, who could be in for bigger roles next year or something along those lines. We'll see if we can do our best to incorporate some 2018 content for those of you that are still downloading, even if you are no longer in the playoffs. If you're still in the playoffs,
we appreciate you if you are downloading and you're not in the playoffs.
We sure do, and we appreciate all of your support. Always, I mentioned earlier, you know, the social media support's a great way for us to, especially as the season comes to an end, we can stay engaged with you. Along those lines, Stephania B87 on Instagram and Stephania_ESPN on Twitter. I am at Field Yates, both on Twitter and Instagram. Friday, we're back. Preview show. We'll talk to you then. Peace out.
The theme song of the Fantasy Focus was created and performed by Eric Hutchinson. Check out more of his music at erichutchinson.com. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. For more great podcasts, listen on the ESPN app or subscribe on iTunes.